Good evening, councillors. Good evening, officers. Good evening, everyone present here, and welcome to those online, the councillors online, and indeed members of the public. We proceed straight away to agenda item number 1, which are the minutes of the last meetings, and I seek approval to sign the minutes of the meetings held on the 15th and 24th of September as correct records. Do I have your authority? Agreed. I shall then sign. Agenda item number 2, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies, please, Lisa?
Yes, Chair. Councillors Chowdhury, Mrs Cook, Gio and Winter.
Thank you. And we have members attending remotely tonight, and that's Councillors Burton, Grona, Legg, and I think Councillor McGurk is actually in the chamber, is he not? No? No, oh, there, sorry. Good evening, Councillor, yes, and McGurk. And a reminder that those members attending remotely are unable to move, second or vote on any matter in accordance with our hybrid formal meeting protocol. And I'm reminded that we also have Mark Watkins, our Deputy Monitoring Officer, present online. Welcome. Item number 3, disclosures of interest and dispensations. Are there any disclosures by members of interest or dispensations in matters on the agenda? If so, please declare the nature of any such interest under the terms of the Code of Conduct. Are there any declarations? Councillor Maynard.
Chair, it's always difficult with being a dual hatter as to know when it's appropriate to declare an interest, given that East Sussex County Council isn't always mentioned. But I think, as a precaution, I'll declare on agenda item 7 pertaining to the budget, if it's called, and agenda items 12, 13 and 14, should East Sussex County Council be brought up in the conversations around those 3 motions today. Obviously, a non-pecuniary interest, but just an interest, personal interest, as an executive member of East Sussex County Council.
Ah, yes. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Could you put your microphone on when you say that?
Sorry, yes, as a member of East Sussex County Council, non-pecuniary interest, for the same reasons as Councillor Maynard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And yes, Councillor Thomas.
Agenda item 7 as Chair of the Housing Company.
Councillor Cooper.
Agenda item 7 as a member of the District Council Housing Company.
And that is all. Thank you. And you're reminded to... Councillor Timpey.
Sorry, Chair. Under 7, the budget trustee of the Delaware Board and Rother Town Councillor.
And Councillor Field.
Thank you. Also a trustee of the Delaware.
Have we exhausted all possibilities? No, we have. Thank you. And members reminded to restate those interests at the time when the matter is discussed. We now come on to my communications, which will include, towards the end, a 5-minute talk by Stephen Hill of the Pett Level Independent Rescue Boat. The first statement is a rather sad one, that a former councillor, David Maynard, who served for 2 terms until 2003, has died recently, and I'm sure councillors will wish to express their sorrow. I gather it's no relation of yours, Councillor Maynard. So that is to be noted with regret. My engagement, since we met in September, I've twice attended concerts by the Bexhill Choral Society at St. Peter's in Bexhill. They were excellent as always. In November, I attended the Polegate Community Centre as a guest of the Mayor of Polegate, where we enjoyed an excellent tea followed by a highly professional performance of A Night at the Musicals by the Polegate Drama Group. It really was good. On the 8th of November, I informally attended the Robertsbridge Repair Workshop, where I was warmly welcomed and shown the great range of repair skills offered by volunteers in a highly sociable setting. My thanks to them all. On Sunday the 9th of November, I laid a wreath on behalf of Rother at the Remembrance Service at Icklesham, which was within my ward. The service was held outdoors and the wreaths were laid at the foot of a tree from which the leaves were rather poignantly falling. On the 11th of November, I took part in the 2-minute silence here at the Town Hall. On the 19th of November, I judged the cake baking contest at Rother's annual staff event at the Delaware Pavilion. I won't say who won, but I can honestly say it was a blind tasting and all the entries were absolutely excellent. On Wednesday, the 26th of November, with other councillors, I was at the Rother Voluntary Action AGM held at the Relais, Coogin Beach. And as I've declared before, my charities are the Fairlight Friday Lunch Club for older people, known by everyone as MOPS, and also the Pet Level Independent Rescue Boat. Tonight, I'm very pleased to say that we have Steve Hill of the Pet Level Independent Rescue Boat here to talk about their work. And so over to you, Steve, if you'd like to come up here. Oh, I see. You've been given a microphone down there. Everything changes. You've got the button pressed. So
I believe, yes, I seem to be active.
Away you go when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Chair, fellow councillors. Thank you for this opportunity to come along and speak to you this evening. Forgive me, this is a rather strange position for me to be in. I'm not used to sitting down and doing this sort of thing. I'm normally standing up and waving my arms and doing lots of other things. A bit about myself. Obviously, my name's Steve Hill. I've been a part of the volunteer crew down at Pet Level Rescue Boat for 25 years as crew and helm. And now getting to the age where I'm sort of taking a backward step going out to sea unless it's a very warm day and going down to Canberra. If it's at all rough and cold, I'm staying indoors. I'm also chairman at the moment of the association. The association was formed back in 1970 after many years of being a safety stroke rescue boat for the fishing fleet down at the beach club at Pet Level. And in 1970, we became a registered charity and also a recognised rescue service. Over the years, we've gone from strength to strength. We've now got to the stage where we are going for a full declared facility, which means that we have to fill out a massive management book, for want of a better term. It's like the old BS 5750 or 9002, for those that can remember that far back. And it basically is just a written record of everything that we do. We have a 10 nautical mile radius of Pet Level from the boathouse there, which covers us from Pet Level Rescue Boat, from the boathouse there down to Dungeness Point and virtually up to Bexhill here. And as you say, Pet Level, for those that I'm sure you all do know where it is roughly equal distance between Rye and Hastings. Obviously, we have two flanking stations with the R&I, who we work very closely with and often train with them. The difference is, of course, we are totally independent and have to fund ourselves completely. We don't receive any money from the R&I or any government funds at all. So we have to raise every single penny that we need. And at the moment, just to sort of cover insurance costs and running costs for the year, it's approximately £35,000 a year. Every crew member, and we've got at the moment 15 qualified crew, 3 senior helms. They cost in the region of £2,000 just to kit out with the all-weather gear that we need and with the communication systems. So it's quite an expensive bit of kit. It's all we pride ourselves on using as much as we can manufacturers in the UK. The new suits that we're getting from a company called Hancock are actually in Dartford, and they're very, very good suits. They're breathable, as opposed to the suits that we used to use, which were almost like a diving suit. They all do the same thing. They're dry suits, so the only thing that gets wet is your hands and your face. But these ones, being breathable, are so much more comfortable during the summer. So if you do have to sit around down at Canberra for missing children, then at least you don't get back and have to pour the sweat out the boots. As I say, we this year have had somewhere in the region of, I believe, last time I counted, 35 shouts, ranging from broken down vessels, people trapped underneath the cliffs at Fairlight, and they always seem to be about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, which is always very convenient. And we've been called as far down as Warrior Square for looking for vulnerable people reported in the sea. This is because, unfortunately, as you may know or may not know, the RNI have had an awful lot of problems recently with getting crews. And so they've been off service quite a bit, so we've had to cover a lot of their calls. So, yeah, we cover quite an area. As I say, we go out for about 10 nautical miles. So that would take us out to the shipping lanes. We got called out last year, end of last year, for a missing diver, and that was out in the shipping lanes, which makes life a little bit more interesting. The ongoing costs that we have, certainly in the training, but a lot of it is every member of the crew will have to have a FM radio license, and also we like everyone to have a Royal Yacht Association Powerboat 2 course, so that they can understand what the helms go through to a certain extent. And they're all first aid trained, and we do pride ourselves on being a bit of a community asset in that response, as all the crew, all the fully qualified crew, have to do an intensive 3-day casualty care course, which means that we can give certain drugs, pain relief and oxygen. And as such, we have had occasion in the local area where we had a gentleman a few months ago that actually broke his hip down on the beach, that we could give quite effective first aid to him and carry on that first aid for the 3 to 4 hours that we had to wait for the ambulance to turn up to take him to the hospital. Also, a couple of our crew members were in a local pub when a young lady unfortunately had a series of seizures, and with their training they were actually very good in helping her out. So, we don't try and think, we try and think of ourselves, as I say, as more of a community asset rather than just some of the people that go out and save lives at sea. So really, that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. That was very, very interesting indeed. And I hope that we will be able to raise some money for you during the course of the year. Look forward to working with you in the future. You are, of course, now free to leave, but we have some really, really interesting items on the agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you both. Thank you. We now come on to agenda item number 5, which is public question time, to answer questions from the members of the public, if any. I don't think we have any. There are no questions, so we pass over to agenda item number 6, member question time, to answer questions from members of the council in accordance with paragraph 12 of the council procedure rules, time limit 30 minutes. And we do have questions. Question number 1 is from Councillor Burton to Councillor Timpey. And Councillor Burton, I think, is remote. Councillor Burton, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to officers and my fellow colleagues for the response to my question. My question relates to the door-to-door food collection service, which begins. Shall I read my question out, or I do have two supplementary questions I'd like to ask now. What would you like me to do?
I think it's easier to read it out so members of the public at home know what we're talking about.
Righto. So, as I said, we were talking about the food collection, waste collection service that begins in April. And my question is therefore, given the comparatively low reach of my alerts, what is being planned to ensure a widespread communication plan for residents that uses both digital and traditional methods and is even inspiring to capture residents' imaginations? Will a key performance indicator be introduced to monitor resident participation and the volume of food waste collected compared to the volume of waste? That's my question, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Timpey to answer.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Burton, for bringing this up, because I know everybody's interested in this. I'll read you the response, just for the people online. The communications campaign. Rother District Council's waste and recycling collection service is delivered as part of the Joint Waste Partnership, which includes Hastings Borough Council, Wealdon District and Rother. All three councils are required by government to offer weekly food waste collections to all their residents. It was therefore extremely important that all three local authority partners worked closely together on all aspects of delivering the new weekly food waste collection service, including how we communicate the new service to our residents. To avoid confusion, we ensured that we were all using similar technology and graphics to get clear and correct information to our residents. To achieve this, the Joint Waste Partnership formed working groups across all three councils and developed a concise and extremely complicated communications programme with detailed methods of sharing information to our residents. The campaign includes videos to explain and demonstrate food waste collections and a coming soon leaflet, which I'll leave here for everyone to look at, to promote the service, and that leaflet will be delivered to all households during December and early January. There is an attachment for anyone who wants to look online of the communication schedule, which is really, as I said, very complicated. There'll be a new service leaflet, which is also extremely informative, which will accompany kitchen caddies, which are these little things here. I feel like I'm demonstrating in an exhibition, that everyone will get. We ran a school competition to involve people at a young age to talk about waste. And we had 58 schools respond with naming the trucks that we have had to purchase for this new service. And I don't know if any of you saw the press release that went out on Friday, but the list of the 20 top names is there for everybody to choose the one name that will get the truck to come to the school. So we've tried to involve at the lowest age to get them to encourage people or their families to recycle food. The food waste collection vehicles themselves will each have a logo on the side promoting recycling, and each resident will receive a letter detailing their collection day, which may differ from their refuse and recycling collection days, and from January onwards will receive a kitchen caddy, which you've seen. Depending on individual collection arrangements, many residents will receive this much larger, which I'll show you, it's very large, which is what you empty your little caddy into, which will be collected weekly. And all of the above is supported by social media, My Alerts and Facebook, and timed press releases. Regarding performance indicators, residents' participation will be monitored by recording the food waste tonnages collected against the current recycling tonnages that are already monitored on a regular basis. The Council's key performance indicators will be established in line with those to be set by the government as part of the effective and efficiency drive for recycling as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burton, you have one supplementary question for anything arising out of the answer you have received.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Timpey, for that full response, and it's exciting to see so much communication. I note your communication plan, this is my question, is predominantly social media and by letter to residents, and would the council consider widening that communication by means of posters to town and parish councils, and also communications with housing, social housing providers, as we are well aware that levels of recycling are often low where there are communal bins. That's my question.
Councillor Timpey.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Burton. You can appreciate that there is a very limited budget around the whole of this particular service. I'll certainly put that to the officers, and I quite agree, anything we can do to get the message out there. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, councillors. Question number 2 is from Councillor Clark to Councillor McCourt. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if you want me to read out the question. I think most of the members have got it on their iPads anyway, but the question was, I understand some housing associations in Robber have sold off some of their rented social housing. It's my understanding they're allowed to do this. I am concerned of any reduction in social housing stock. Is the income from sales for new build homes to support their finances? Are they not receiving enough government funding to carry out new housing projects in Robber? We all know providing new social housing is a slow process, so any reduction in housing stock is very unwelcome.
Thank you. Councillor McCourt.
Thank you, Chair. I'll read it out for the benefit of people online, but members obviously have got the answer. Yes, some housing associations have sold individual units of their housing stock of rented homes. They're permitted to dispose of homes in this way, and decisions to dispose are usually taken due to the costs of meeting new stock condition standards. Properties are usually sold on the open market at auction to the highest bidder. The properties are also offered on a first refusal basis to the council to acquire as part of our temporary accommodation programme. Decisions as to whether to acquire such accommodation is made on a case-by-case basis. Any reduction in the social housing stock of the district is unwelcome. The housing team asks for notification of any planned disposals and monitor these. The income from the sale of these disposal properties may go towards new developments, but will also go towards stock remediation costs in the housing association's portfolio. These costs have grown significantly in recent years in response to the Grenfell Tower disaster and recent passing of AWAB's law, for example. The extent of the stock condition requirements on registered providers, RPs, is an additional cost to RPs, and it is hoped that the recent 10-year rent settlement will support the financial stability of RPs, leading to fewer of these types of disposals. Traditional housing associations with large stock portfolios are finding it challenging to undertake new developments currently. A new affordable homes programme has recently been launched by Homes England that housing associations will be making bids to for grant funding. We would anticipate an improvement in the appetite for new developments from traditional housing associations into 2026 and beyond. Provision of new social housing is challenging currently and take a significant amount of time. Resources from the Council's housing enabling function is key to helping increase the volume of social housing being built and the speed at which this takes place. Officers are also working towards the development of new council housing for rent in Rother, in line with the aims and objectives of the recently adopted Housing Development Strategy.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, do you have a supplementary question arising out of the answer?
I do indeed, and it is related to the first question. And thank you for your reply, which is quite comprehensive. I am really concerned about housing associations selling off rented homes. It would be interesting to know how many homes have been sold off by associations in Rother in the last year. At the moment, there are 2 in my ward that have just recently been sold, and there will now be high-priced rented homes at £1,200 a month. The money raised from these sales may be spent on new build, but that could be years down the road. This policy is depleting the housing stock needed by residents on our own housing waiting list. The total irony of this, and it's an absolute farce, that in the 90s, we transferred all our housing stock because the government said...
Councillor Clark, is
Is
there a question coming?
No, well, it's a question. I'm just saying that we were told to hand over the stock because housing associations would then have the funds to repair properties. And we're now in a situation where they're selling off properties that were expensive to repair. It really, really does concern me.
Yes, I think there was perhaps a question in there about how many houses have been sold and what the difference in numbers is.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Clark, for that question. We'll get the figures for you. I don't have them to hand, obviously. I agree with you about the whole issue and the problems attendant on the transfer, large-scale voluntary transfers in the 90s and the noughties. You're quite right that finance rules for local government at that time prevented councils from raising capital funds, borrowing money to improve and refurbish deteriorating, dilapidated housing stock. Of course, at that time, it was transferred for the reasons that housing associations could raise that money. Of course, at that time, the predecessor of the current Southern Homes was a much smaller, medium-sized local housing association, which then became Amicus Horizon, Optivo, and has ended up now with 78,000 homes, the 5th largest housing association in the country. And all of the problems of scale that has arisen because of that are an issue. So I do appreciate your concerns. My preference is that we start building again as councils. We start building council homes that are socially rented. And I know that Councillor Barnes agrees with me on this because we had an interesting conversation at the recent Excellent Housing Development Conference in Robertsbridge. And, we will be getting there eventually. So there is cause for some optimism and some hope for the future. £39 billion have been set aside by the government for build. And we are one of only 10 councils nationally who have been chosen to look at ways of how we can start building our capacity, start building council homes again. So I'm quite proud of that fact and excited by it as well. It's a great achievement. A small council like ours is one of only 10 nationally. So we hope to build our capacity, to build new homes, to open the housing revenue account and to provide that much needed social housing that Councillor Clark requires and we all indeed require. So thank you for your question, Councillor Clark. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. That was a very, very interesting reply. Thank you. That was the last of the questions. So we now move on to agenda item number 7, to receive the report and recommendations from Cabinet. And that's to receive the report of Cabinet on matters for determination by full Council at its meetings, that is the meetings of the Cabinet, on the 6th of October, 3rd of November and 8th of December this year. And there's an updated report with recommendations arising from the 8th of December meeting, and that's been published on the website. Councillor Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that reports of the meetings held on the 6th of October, 3rd of November and the 8th of December, as set out in the report, be approved and adopted.
And is that seconded? Yes. Oh. Councillor Bayliss got in first. I shall now call over the reports. If no minutes are reserved for discussion, all recommendations will automatically be approved without debate. If members want to speak to and/or amend any recommendations, they must reserve the relevant minute when I call out the minute number. So if members wish to reserve an item for discussion, please indicate as I call over. So starting with the 6th of October 2025, the Homelessness and Rough Sleeping Strategy, CB 2527. No, none. And the Vexatious Complaints Policy, CB 2528. None. And Data Breach Policy, CB 2529. None. Then the meeting of the 3rd of November 2025, the Housing Renewal Financial Assistance Policy 2026 to 2028, which is CB 2538. No. The Freedom of Information Act 2000 and Environmental Information Regulation 2000 Policy, CB 2539. No. Data Protection Policy, CB 2540. No. And the meeting of the 8th of December 2025, that is the Budget Monitoring 2025-26 Revenue, Capital and Savings Targets Monitoring Quarter 2 Update, CB 2550. And the Hurst Green Neighbourhood Plan 2021 to 2028, CB 2551. No. So none of the minutes have been called over or reserved for debate. So in that event, they have been moved and seconded, and I shall now put the motion to the vote. This means that all the Cabinet recommendations are approved without discussion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to add that 6 of those reports came forward were about policy, and it was work that officers, with all the demands of everything else that's beset them, were able to sit down, revisit these in order to bring ourselves really up to speed. And I would think it's an ideal opportunity of thanking the additional resources that the Chief Executive brought in order for us to deal with this. Thank you very much.
I hear the hears round the room, and I would add my thanks to that, Councillor. Agenda item number 8, to receive the report and recommendation from the Audit Committee, and that's on matters for determination by full council, which is tonight, but the Audit Committee met on the 29th of September 2025. Councillor Barnes, John Barnes.
That necessitates us looking at our constitution to make sure that we had overhauled our procurement rules. And those changes are set out in Appendix B. Basically, the Audit Committee thought all these changes were good, but they made one minor change, which you'll find on page 22. We asked that the benefit should not simply be to the council, but the benefits to our community that we represent should be brought into the Constitution. The officers took that away and have recommended that change, which is in yellow on page 22, and which I think is to be welcomed. So may I move those changes, Chairman? Thank you.
Thank you. And is there a seconder? Councillor Oliver. Yes, Councillor Oliver. Thank you. I shall now call over the report. If the minute is not reserved for discussion, it will automatically be approved without debate. If members want to speak and or amend the recommendation, you must reserve the minute when I call out the minute number. And the meeting, of course, was the 29th of September 2025, AC 2529, Finance and Procurement Rules, Amendment to the Constitution. No. And as the minute has not been reserved for discussion and moved and seconded, I shall now put the motion to the vote. This will mean that this audit recommendation is approved without discussion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. She's gone. She's gone anyway. And this is to receive the report of the Head of Corporate and Strategic Services on the designation of the Section 151 officer. I see that the person concerned, Charlotte Spendley, has left the room. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that report of the Head of Corporate and Strategic Services confirming the designation of Charlotte Spendley as the Councillor's Section 151 officer be approved. I'd like to think this is a formality. I think her role as an interim has been exceptional, and it's assisted the colleagues in the audit committee that have actually needed to deal with some rather taxing and difficult matters to deal with. So I would hope that this would be unanimously agreed by members.
And is there a seconder? Councillor Prochak has seconded. And I will now put the motion to the vote. And all those in favour? And that is unanimous. And could somebody let... I'm texting her. Wait for it to come. I think it's very awkward. I think from the reception you received that you got the job, and may I congratulate you along with everybody else here. Well, very well deserved, indeed. Thank you. Agenda item number 10. To approve the appointment of member representatives to Hastings Advice and Representation Centre, better known as HARC, and to Rother Voluntary Action. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the report of the Chief Executive be approved and adopted, that Councillor Delaney be appointed to the HARC and the RVA, and Councillor Byrne be appointed the substitute member for RVA.
And do you have a seconder? Yes. Councillor Bayliss. And are there any other nominations to serve on these outside bodies? No. As there are no other nominations, Councillors Delaney and Byrne are accordingly appointed. Congratulations, councillors. Agenda item 11, report of the Chief Executive. To receive the report of the Chief Executive concerning changes in committee and cabinet membership. This report has been updated and republished following a change to the political makeup of the Council since the agenda was published. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that the report of the Chief Executive detailing changes in committee and cabinet membership be received.
And seconded? Councillor Prochak. Councillor Bayliss has confirmed her.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm that I will take the committee place on the HR committee. A substitute, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Again, unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, motion to Council. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 13, consideration be given to the motion to Council which has been submitted by Councillor Stanger, as detailed in the agenda. As a reminder, motions can only be debated for a maximum period of 30 minutes per motion. Now, do we have Councillor Stanger? You're here.
Chair, members of the Council, I rise to move the motion in my name regarding neurodiversity declaration. We often talk about diversity in this chamber. We talk about race, gender, physical disability, and rightly so. But today I'm asking the Council to shine a light on a new form of diversity that is often invisible, yet affects a significant number of residents, our staff, and indeed people in this very room. I speak today, not just as a councillor, as someone who lives the reality every day. Living with neurodiversity and navigating my own mental health challenges has given me first-hand understanding of the barriers that exist in a world that is rarely designed for a mind like mine. I know what it's like to feel like to fit into a neurotypical mould that doesn't fit. I know the frustrations of systems that don't account for different ways of thinking and processing. This personal experience is why I'm proud that the leader, Doug Oliver, deputy leaders, Sue Project and Christine Bayliss have agreed to appoint me as the Council's neurodiversity champion, with seconded by my colleague, Councillor Sam Coleman. It's not just a title to me, it's a commitment to ensure others don't face the same unnecessary obstacles I have. The motion seeks to change how the Council operates through 3 clear commitments. First, the legal and moral duty. We're asking the Council to proudly affirm that our responsibilities under the public sector equalities duty extend fully to those who are neurodiverse. This is about acknowledging that reasonable adjustments are vital. For a neurodiverse resident, a reasonable adjustment might be the difference between accessing housing support and falling through the cracks. Secondly, representation. The motion established the principle of no decision about us without us. We cannot presume to know what is best for neurodiverse people without involving them. We must commit to consulting and involving neurodiverse individuals and the groups that represent them in our decision making wherever possible. Thirdly, awareness. Policy is nothing without understanding. Therefore, the motion resolves that neurodiversity must be covered in any future equalities, diversity and inclusion training provided by this Council. We need to equip our staff and members with the knowledge to recognise these invisible barriers and remove them. Chair, my mental health and neurodiversity are part of who I am. It brings challenges, yes, but it also brings a unique perspective, one that I hope to use to serve the Council and our community. By passing this motion, Rother District Council can send a powerful message to everyone struggling in silence. We see you, we value your unique perspective, and we are there on your side. I hope I can count on the support of every member in the room today. I move the motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Coleman, I think you second.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Stanger, for that brilliant introduction of your motion there. And I think a lot of admiration for you to be so open there about your neurodiversity. And it was a pleasure to help write this motion with you. As someone who's diagnosed ADHD as an adult as well, and is still coming to terms with some of the many things that have happened in my life, the many challenges that you look at with a new perspective when you realise you have a neurodiversity. And you think, oh, maybe that's why that happened, maybe that's why this happened. Now it all makes sense. And actually the revolution as well and revelation of being medicated for that once you are diagnosed and discovering what life is like for maybe someone who's a little bit more neurotypical when your brain starts to function as it does for others is quite revolutionary as well. But I think you're absolutely right, Councillor Stanger, that as a council we can be trailblazers in terms of creating a society and creating a system and a series of systems that work for all people, not just those who have a neurotypical way of thinking, because actually neurodiversity brings with it a lot of strengths, brings with it a lot of opportunities, and a lot of talents and skills as well. And I think it's an important strand as well to the equalities and diversity and inclusion work that this council does, that I started when I was on the cabinet, and I know Councillor Delaney is ably continuing that work, and I'm sure he will work fantastically with you, Councillor Stanger, to bring that neurodiversity championship into the way that the council works in terms of our disability inclusion, in terms of how we interface with SEND residents and representatives. I remember we had a SEND neurodiversity charity come to visit the town hall for a meeting a while back, and Democratic Services were wonderful in how they tried to accommodate those needs, but it became very clear that as a council we hadn't really considered how we accommodate people with neurodiversity in terms of our sort of inclusion practices, and they weren't on the website for people to see if they were thinking about coming to visit the town hall, as it would be if you had a physical disability, for example. So I think there's lots of work there that you can do, Councillor Stanger, in your championship role to show this council as an exemplary sort of, as an exemplar for whatever future council comes forward, and to show that kind of best practice that can be taken forward onto that new council. And I know East Sussex County Council have a lot of experience and a lot of work surrounding this, because obviously it is part of the areas that they cover, and so I'm sure that there'll be lots of support there from staff and colleagues at East Sussex County Council in terms of how we can implement that best practice in a way that doesn't take up too much officer time or processes. So I absolutely second this motion and support it wholeheartedly. I think it's a great step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Prochak.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Coleman, for supporting that so ably. And Councillor Stanger, I am so proud of you as a councillor, and humbled, and really humbled by your courage. And so thank you so much for bringing this motion. And it's really just about being more understanding, more inclusive, and kinder in the end. So thank you.
Would any other councillor wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Maynard.
Only to redeclare my interest, as Councillor Coleman rightly you did mention East Sussex County Council. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor McLaren.
Do I stand up? Yes, thank you very much, Councillors Stanger and Coleman, for bringing this forward. I'd like to just highlight to the Council that by consulting and involving neurodiverse people in Council decisions, we will be strengthening the Council, as neurodiverse individuals often possess exceptional creative thinking and problem-solving abilities, which can significantly enhance our decision-making. And I've had the benefit of experiencing this firsthand in my close working with Councillor Stanger, and so I strongly commend this motion to you.
Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, then Councillor Stanger, you have the right to sum up.
Just want to say thank you to everyone, and appreciate the support from the group leaders, the leaders, deputy leaders, and Councillor Coleman, Councillor Delaney, and colleagues, because I think we all know someone that's, I use the term neurospicy, but it just means a general kind of, years have gone by, people said it didn't exist before it did exist. We didn't deal with it. We just stuck them in gardening club or ignored them, or, yeah, it was different. But like you say, look at the genius of the 19th, 20th century, you'll find 80% of them will be neurodiverse in some way, on the edge of insanity sometimes, but it's good. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, councillors. Yes, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 13. This is another motion to Council in accordance with the Procedure Rule 13. Consideration be given to the motion which has been submitted by Councillor Prochak as detailed in the agenda. And as again, this can be debated for 30 minutes. Councillor Prochak.
Goodness, hope we don't need 30 minutes. Thank you, Chair. And I hope you've all read the motion. And the reason I'm bringing this motion is that we have done so well with our climate emergency, which we declared quite some time ago now. And we have actually won accolades for the work we're doing in climate emergency. But nature emergency is hand in hand with climate emergency. The fact is that we have it's what's called a nature emergency, as we are one of the UK is one of the most nature depleted in the world. Difficult to imagine sitting in this beautiful Rother. Difficult to imagine. However, we are, and monitored wildlife populations have declined by 19% since they started being measured. 1 in 6 species are at a risk of extinction. Only 14% of our rivers are in good ecological health. Peatlands, once the huge store of carbon, are now emitting millions of tons of CO2. Only 7% of our woodlands are healthy. Actually, we are not the most wooded area in the UK. Surrey is, but we do have the highest old woodland. Ancient. I knew there was a word. Only 2.8% of land considered effectively protected by nature. Now, this is something that's pretty close to our hearts at the moment, as the local plan has just gone out for consultation. And we know, and those in rural areas know, that we are going to be using some of this land. We are going to deplete nature unless we're really, really careful. And what I want to do here is to emphasise that nature is not a nice to have add-on. It actually should be intertwined with climate emergency. Because living systems regulate our climate. They protect us against fire, and they actually feed us. It actually feeds us. I quoted the other day that Jane Goodall said that we are the most intellectual animal on the planet, but we're the most unintelligent because we are destroying our planet. The leader has said that we're getting our policies in order, and 10 out of 10 for officers and for Rother, for getting our policies up to date and in order. And this policy is also part of that process. I know we're doing a huge amount of work in our local plan, and the policies are there, but this is extending it for the whole of the council. That's the ambition of this policy, extending it for the whole of the council. I know an awful lot must be done at the strategic, global or mayoral level. A lot must be done there. But we here, sitting in this chamber, have the power to actually do our bit for it as well. And also it's about the economy, because pollinators contribute over £500,000 annually to agriculture. So it is a huge step forward to actually have this as a policy. We have to cultivate a culture of care for nature, and weave nature back into our daily lives. We need to have an economy that values nature, not exploits it. So I do hope you can all support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there a seconder? Councillor Field. The matter is now open for debate, and Councillor Byrne was first, followed by Councillor Coleman, and then Councillor Gray, and then Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, yes, I welcome this motion. And I should have declared an interest, but I will now, as a member of the board of the Coombe Valley Country Park Community Interest Company. We have within Rother and shared with Hastings this wonderful jewel in our crown called the Coombe Valley Country Park. And one of the good things that might come out of, well, I'm sure there'll be others, but one of the good things that might come out of local government reorganisation is this greater working together between Rother and Hastings. Not that this has not been going on before, but it's easier now to work across those boundaries. And I must say, with a prompt from the leader as well, we are looking at a more meaty 4-year plan for the park. It's important that the park doesn't get lost within this local government reorganisation. And I won't go on about the various projects. If you look at the website, and please do, look at the Coombe Valley Country Park website. The work that goes on there is amazing. The volunteers are good. We have a volunteer-led warden service. It's really done some good things, but rather out on the edge. And I'm hoping now that we can pull it into the middle and put it in sharp focus. Groundwork South do a very good job pulling down funding for the various projects. Most of it is match funding, so we've got to go out cap in hand to other people to achieve this funding. It also does a lot in terms of introducing young people to not so much horticulture as agriculture and maintaining the natural environment. So very glad to support this motion, and please look at the Coombe Valley Country Park website and all its accoutrements. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I welcome this motion, naturally. I think it's a good motion. Thank you. That joke landed eventually with some of you. I have a few questions which I hope Councillor Proshak or someone else can answer on this motion. First of all, what does this motion do? Just because we don't have much time left as a council, and I just want some clarity around what it is we're expecting to be able to do in addition that we're not currently doing in terms of protecting and enhancing nature between now and the end of Rother District Council. Because we do already do a lot, and I know both members and officers are proudly and rightly so champions of nature and our natural environment, particularly because of the district that we find ourselves in. With that then comes the question about what's the additional sort of time burden in terms of officer time. I do have some concern that we have quite an ambitious set of things that the council is trying to deliver in terms of our corporate plan, in terms of our capital projects, rather, that's the term I was looking for. And I know officer time is already quite stretched as well with local government reorganisation, etc., etc. And I just wonder whether adding this on as a sort of bolt-on at this stage might potentially overstretch officers and overload officers, so just making sure that has been thought of. And then finally, just a point about the fact we do, of course, have a nature emergency, as we have a climate emergency. We also have a housing emergency, I would say, as well, and I think there needs to be some balance when you're talking about preserving and enhancing nature, that you also need to, couple that with the fact that we do still need to ensure that more houses are built and that they are sustainable houses and the houses that people can live in, because personally I think the housing emergency is something that we should be focusing our resources and time on perhaps more at this stage than the nature emergency potentially, although both can work hand in hand with that appropriate balance. So just checking that sort of balance has been considered by the proposers. And I think that is all of my points, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the Green Group, it will come as no surprise that we do wholeheartedly support this motion. And Councillor Coleman, I know you addressed your questions to Councillor Projak, but maybe I can just jump in with a couple of points. We can do something. We can look at, for example, the use of pesticides. And Councillor Projak mentioned pollinators and how important they are. And there is a very well-known saying, if the bees go, we go. And I know there's one or two of us here that have to carry EpiPens because obviously bees can be quite fatal. But on the other hand, without the pollinators, there is no food. And Councillor Coleman, I take your point that we need housing, but we need nature more, because without nature, we have no planet. And with no planet, we have no people, so we don't need houses. So let's start with nature and then build on that. We do desperately need to protect nature, and I thank you, Councillor Kojak, for bringing this motion. Thank you very much.
And yes, councillors, please. I was at fault myself just now. Would councillors remember to switch off their microphones when they're not speaking, please? Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I fully support this motion. And it's so important that all organisations and everyone contributes towards it. Not so many years ago, 75 trees were created in Pebson. Councillor Gray knows all about that. They've all taken and grown very well. Also, I noticed this week, Orbit Housing have a community fund, and they've created wild meadows in Pebsham on grassed areas near their estate, which is going to be wonderful, you know. So, yes, housing associations, any bodies that we've got any finance that can contribute, every little thing we do contributes. So, yeah, that's fine.
Councillor Bayliss, then Councillor Stanger, then Councillor McLaren. Hold on, I'm going to have to write this down. Biggs, sorry. Which Barnes? Barnes. Well, you'll tell me in a moment. Yes. Councillor Biggs, then Councillor Biggs it is. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I ain't got any bits of paper to read from. I fully support this motion. I'm glad Rother supports it as well as a council. 5A and B, it says increase space for wildlife, long-term maintenance, expansion of the nature recovery programme on our land through planning policy for new developments, reducing pressure on wildlife. So Rother's left hand, well done. Rother's right hand is destroying this, because if you look at the rural areas, what I look for, and boundaries on my parishes, the red pen has come out and the permitted development is being done on areas which it says should be protected. I'm fearful for the planning committee because I feel there'll be untold pressure on them to put forward housing to be built on these areas, which I think will be a tragedy. I've got grandchildren, I've got quite a few as well, and I want to see them grow up in the wild spaces. So I fully support this, and I just do be fearful for the housing, and I agree with Councillor McCall, we do need housing, but there's areas where housing should be built, and I don't believe some of these rural areas that's had the red pen put around them, the permitted development was one end of the village, they've got a little block they've left, and because some landowner says, I want to build houses on this, and I can quote two areas. One was a development of 6 houses, the planning committee turned it down. Next to it, there was an area of 5 houses, the planning committee turned it down. All of a sudden, the red pens appeared, and now they can build 20 houses on the development. This isn't good, and that's why I fear for this project, but you have my support.
Councillor Bayliss, my apologies for not calling you earlier.
Yes, thank you. Well, I, like everyone else, I think in this room, support this motion this evening. In terms of sort of economic development, I was quite interested to read that obviously this does cover how we support economic development in the area. There's a couple of examples that I wanted to give. So Councillor Rathbone-Ariel and myself have been working with Councillor Timpey on a tree planting project in St Leonard's Road. And part of the reason why we've been doing that is because as the climate warms, you need to provide much cooler streets, and you can do that if you produce the right trees and sort of plant them sort of sufficiently so it provides that shade, you can do that. And we need to make sure that because it's a conservation area, etc., that actually our planning department and, you know, fully support and work out ways in which it can be done, rather than sort of maybe putting challenges in place. So that's one way I think that you could make this tee up with an economic development strategy. I have to tell you, this afternoon I visited Rye Fisheries as part of my role on economic development and promotion, actually, Love Local at Christmas. And there I was talking to the owners who had a receipt from us of quite a substantial grant of money, which has helped them build and develop Rye Fisheries. And I was quite astounded to learn that actually we've almost gone past the point of no return in relation to our sea life. And I think that may be something that's a little bit missing from this motion today, because they were saying that the catches are changing substantially from Rye fishing fleet. So, for example, there's evidence that there's quite a bit of bluefin tuna now in the channel. There is no quota for bluefin tuna for any of the Rye fishing fleet. So if they catch any, has to go back.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And so, again, I think we need to be looking at how we address the challenge when it's happened, as is that I found out this afternoon, but also to make sure we reduce the barriers when we're developing projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Precisely within the 3 minutes. Precisely right. I think it's Councillor John Barnes. Is it John Barnes now? Yes.
I will be brief, Chairman. I strongly support this motion. We have a number of declining species in this county of ours. The ones I'm particularly interested in are some of the seabirds that are declining, the common gull and the black-headed gull, and their most important roost is at Buell Water. So I welcome the fact that we've put Buell Water into our strategy, our local plan, but we can do more. We can actually bring pressure to bear on the Environment Agency to make sure that Buell becomes a special protection area. Obviously, we do need to build houses, but again, I would look to make them much more sustainable, both in terms of the effect on climate, but the use of timber framing. And again, grey water. Both very, very important and should become part of our supply chain. At the moment, we bring far too much timber in from overseas. And really what we need to develop is a viable timber industry in this county, which would benefit us economically, shorten our supply chains, and actually build houses that are genuinely sustainable and part of the landscape. There is a lot in the new local plan, but we do need to spell out, I think, exactly what we are seeking to do in regard of nature protection and in regard of landscape protection, because the pressure is now on for development. It has got to be in the right place, and we've got to do small things. We have, at the moment, a farming industry that is moving over to actually work with nature rather than against. But they desperately need an abattoir. And I know that Councillor Bayliss has this one in mind. So there is an awful lot underlying this motion that we ought to be welcoming and furthering as far as we can. I support it very strongly.
Thank you. Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, in support of this motion, make everyone aware that on the 27th of November, there was a national emergency briefing on climate and nature, and there's a petition online to get that televised. You can see it online, anybriefing.org, and various professors from across the climate and nature community did a presentation. Various MPs attended, various other members of the climate and nature community attended. So it's that's anybriefing.org. Go and look and sign a petition to get this televised offline. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor McLaren. Yes, Councillor McLaren, followed by Councillor Stenger.
Thank you, Chair. I will be exceptionally brief. I would like to address the idea that tackling our nature emergency is at odds with the dire need to tackle our housing shortage. This motion will ensure that we build nature recovery into our planning policy for new developments. These can and must go hand in hand. Council, this is our job now. We must do it.
Councillor Stenger.
Thank you. Yeah, I fully support the motion by Councillor Project and colleagues, what they've said today. I think that we have to, it's not an either or like a lot of colleagues have said. I think if we really get a credible local plan that is really sustainable and you could build sustainable housing and use BNG to its maximum impact, you can have housing that fits around nature rather than housing that destroys nature. I represent a part town ward and Pevensey Levels and the Who Marshes, and so mixture of farming and urban situations, Highwoods as well. So it shouldn't be either or, it should be both. But I understand. But developers have a right and they have a responsibility. They don't. They come in and they use every loophole. Unless we've got the 5-year housing supply and a decent local plan, we're open to exploitation, and we must make sure that's fixed.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm, again, like probably everybody else in this room, are happy to support this. The only I thought I would say that, Councillor Hackett and I's ward in Eastern Rother, we've been affected by Eastbourne depositing their biobeads into the sea, and then they've washed up everywhere from Pet Level, Winchelsea Beach, Rye Harbour Nature Reserve, the tidal Rother, and mostly notably Canberra, where we've had many people down there picking them up. There's millions and millions and millions of these things. We've got specialist contractors down there attempting to deal with it, but this is going to take probably 2 years. They're just going to be floating around forever. And they've even gone around as far as Dungeness and around St Mary's Bay as well, which is also a sandy beach. You can't see them on the pebbles because they just disappear into the pebbles, but where you've got the sand, they sit on top and it exercises people. But equally, at the recent Radcott end of season meeting, which our officers hosted, I sat in on that, and our contractors from Biffa, who are really, really excellent, I'm going to say that, they are excellent. They reported that off of Canberra, out of the village and the beach, during this summer, during this season, 101 tonnes of rubbish. Now that hasn't washed up from anywhere. That has been brought down to Canberra and deposited by visitors to Canberra for us to pick up. 101 tonnes. Now this is half full of water, but if I take that out, that's going to weigh, I don't know, not a lot. So you need a shed load of them, literally, probably more than a shed load, to make 101 tonne of that chucked all over the beach. And that bothers me more, to be honest, than biobeads. Biobeads, bad news, but people actually bringing garbage and depositing it on our beach and in our village for our people to pick up and take away is wrong. So there it is. Nothing I can do about that. We'll do the same next season. Our contractors will go down there and they'll pick it all up, and everybody will come down and they'll all go away home, and that'll be that. But there it is. But I'm happy to support the motion. But I thought I'd say that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Field.
Yes.
And Councillor Creaser.
Sorry.
Councillor Field first.
Well, I did rather think you would let me reserve my right to speak till the end.
Yeah, if you wish. Yes. I thought you were sorry, I thought you were indicating you wished to speak. No,
Well, I thought it had finished and I thought you'd forgotten me.
I couldn't. Councillor Creaser.
The spill of these bio beads has amply shown us all how vulnerable we are in terms of our land and sea. And it turns out these bio beads are full of all kinds of chemicals and metals, and that will get into the ecosystem. Those beads sink when you've got stuff on top and stones, they'll go between it. So the problem we have is that also they are the same size as a lot of the food that our wildlife eat. So there'll be misunderstandings. So the concern is that we have a potential disaster there, and we need to look after it all. We do need housing, there is no doubt about that at all. We don't need very expensive, big housing. We need homes for local people, no doubt about that in my mind at all. Not sure how we're going to achieve that with what's going on at the moment, but we need to have nature as well. And so therefore we need to have a concerted, cohesive plan, which is the neighbourhood plan. And that's the thing, the neighbourhood plan covers all of this, except for the bio bees, because that's new. But we need to be aware that that all fits together. It's not either or, it's got to be all or nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we only have 7 minutes left here, and obviously I would like, well, 3 minutes. Obviously, I would like the seconder and the proposer to have their word.
Thank you. I've not got a great deal to say because I think everybody who's participated in this debate has said it all. But I think when the population out there thinks about nature emergencies and nature recoveries, they think about the Amazon rainforest being chopped down. They think about rainforests all over the place. They think about glaciers melting. I don't think they think specifically on their own doorsteps. And when the climate became an issue some years ago, there was this saying, wasn't there? Think globally, act locally. And this is what we really have to be doing, acting locally. And there's a huge role here for education, and dare I say it, for our own council's comms policy, to let people know that we're doing this and why we're doing it and why it's so important. And why are we doing it now when we're going to be losing ourselves as a council? The answer is we need to benchmark this policy and our attitude so that successor authorities have something to work with and on. That's why we're doing it. There's been a lot of talk about housing, and many of you have said, you know, the two things are not mutually exclusive, but I'd sort of point you really at Blackfriars Development, which is a council development at arm's length on council land, but not all the land is being built on. Now we know, sadly, because I'm a gardener, that people who buy houses don't want large gardens, but they do want and they do need greenery around them. It's a fact that green things give off chemicals that humans in the environment absorb, and it's like a drug, and it really physically benefits them. It's not just a question of looking at it and thinking, isn't it pretty, and feeling better. You're actually getting goodness from the plants, and that's why we need to do this. We need to give people the quality of life as well as the housing. You need to do both, because if people are miserable, they're not going out in the greenery anyway. So let's support this, please, and I think we are going to, because it's for the benefit of all of us and for the future.
If necessary, I will extend time, but I think Councillor Project would like a right of reply.
That's very kind. I was going to break the rules anyway. Thank you, those who have supported it. Thank you very much. I know you can see by the wide range of subjects that came up that nature does cover absolutely everything we do, and that's all we're asking with this policy. The other thing, a few buts from Councillor Coleman. The other thing is, as Councillor Field said, the successor authority will have a policy ready to pick up and to go with. And we've set the standard for that. And if I could just finish with another quote from Dame Jane Goodall, And it's a quote that really is relevant to each of us sitting round the table. And it said, your life, she said, these were the words she left us with, your life matters. Every single day you live, you make a difference in the world. And you get to choose the difference you make. We have to do everything in our power to make the world a better place. And each one of us sitting in this room has power more than sitting at home. We have the power of being elected councillors. So let's use it to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you all for your contributions to the debate. Agenda item number 14, another motion to the Council, that consideration be given to a motion submitted by Councillor Field. And remember, I remind myself that we have 30 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Now, for those of you sitting here thinking, why is she doing this now? Speed limits are set by the County Council. I can tell you that I have tried the County Council and it hasn't finished its journey through that body, but they, excuse me.
Redeclare interest, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Maynard.
But they, in true County Council fashion, battered this back to the District Council and said, oh, you need to do it through planning. And actually, I do think there is a very valid reason for doing it through planning and for the way we build our houses. Now, 20 miles an hour has been a very emotive subject throughout the country. Lots of places have 20 mile an hour limits in roads and in villages as a sort of blanket thing. But I wanted to start with new developments because they are new, they're pristine, and we seek to make sure that when we have developments, they are communities of older people and young people and very young people. And they will generate traffic and hopefully children playing outside or at least walking to school. And we know, because research has told us, that if the speed limit is 20 miles an hour, then you're 5 times more likely to survive being hit by a car than if that car was going at 30 miles an hour. We know it improves community cohesion because people feel happy to be outside with each other and behaving like a community. It's better for our well-being on all sorts of levels. And of course, if we've got trees planted at the same time, better still. So that's why I think it's really important that we do this. Now, I know it's going to be addressed in the local plan, but we're not going to be having the local plan for at least 2 years, I suspect. So I think it needs doing very soon. This is for the benefit of all our residents and the residents we hope to attract into our district. So please support this and make sure that we can make communities safe for our residents to live in. Thank you.
And there is a seconder.
Yes,
Councillor
I'd like to
McLaren.
reserve my right to speak till later. Thank you.
Of course. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. This again is a subject close to my heart. I have tried very hard to, in my own ward, reduce, because of the terrible traffic in Old Town, to 20 miles per hour, and also for the new cycle route, but to no avail when I go to East Sussex and they say they cannot do it because it's too expensive. So I do wholeheartedly support this, but I would like to suggest a small amendment, because I agree with Councillor Field, we don't really want to wait another 2 years. So I would like to suggest that at paragraph 2, after the word update, we insert the words, to be effective from the passing of this motion. And then it reads, on proposed policy LW7. Oh, I've been asked to repeat the wording. It just says, to be effective from the passing of this motion, which means immediate effect rather than wait.
I'm being advised there is a difficulty with that in that it would have to go through the proper processes with the local plan and so on. We can't pass that tonight. We can express a view that we might like it, but we can't impose it. Councillor Field.
I very much welcome Councillor Gray's intervention, and I am struggling to understand why a policy passed by this council is not effective, why it has to wait for something else. If it's policy, it's policy. If it doesn't agree with the Constitution, then that needs altering to make sure that it's usable within the framework of this council.
I think we are now discussing a proposed amendment, so any speakers will be speaking on the question of the amendment, but I'm not quite sure that we should be allowing it at all. Monitoring officer. Mr. Watkins.
Yes.
We have our monitoring officer online, Deputy Monitoring Officer, Mr. Watkins. Welcome. Please.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, everybody. The validity of the motion in law and the act of passing the motion are two separate things. So it does not necessarily bind the council if a motion is made contrary to law. That should be a judgment post-motion. So I think where we are at the moment, a motion has been moved and seconded, an amendment has been proposed. I'm not sure it has yet been seconded. If the amendment is seconded, then, or before it's seconded rather, we should go back to the mover of the motion to see if that is accepted. If it is accepted, then the amendment is treated as withdrawn and the debate continues on the amended motion, the legality of which is a separate issue. So where we are at the moment, I think, is going back to the original mover of the motion and asking that member whether she accepts the amendment or does not accept the amendment, because that will tell us where we go next. So I hope that's helpful, members.
That's very helpful. Councillor Field, do you accept the amendment?
Well, I think it was implicit in me saying that I welcomed Councillor Gray's amendment. But yes, I do accept it. I really cannot understand what possibly could be illegal about a councillor proposing a motion. And I really didn't understand what the Deputy Monitoring Officer was trying to tell us. Thank you.
Councillor Maynard.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I think there's some ambiguity in the motion proposed, and again, I will also refer to the fact that obviously, as a member of East Sussex County Council, I'm not going to be voting on this matter because I think that county, obviously, I understand where we are in terms of the local plan, but I think obviously there are 20 MPH motions that come to county. We have those debates there time and time again. But where I wanted some clarification through you, Chairman, to Councillor Field, is whether or not this is a blanket 20 mile an hour on new development, or whether it's on publicly adopted roads. Because there is a very big difference, and I want to say what that difference is. Because if we are talking about public adopted roads, the speed limits can be enforced, and the design is something that would have to satisfy the county council or any subsequent authority. If it is allowing a private developer to develop a scheme that supports 20 miles an hour as they think, so not subject to adoption, you will see more of a proliferation of what we have at the moment, which are evolving, and I do think it's worth bringing this up tonight, because there's an awful increase in private developers who choose to retain the highways to get a cash cow from the residents of those small estates. I know of cases within my own division where their attempts to slow traffic and enforce parking restrictions has led to very dangerous streets where if there is inappropriate parking, emergency vehicles can't get through. So that's why I seek that clarification, because there is a huge difference between one and the other.
Councillor Maynard, or picking up on your point, Councillor Maynard, I think the way the motion is drafted is that the new roads will be designed in such a way that 20 miles an hour is the maximum speed at which it is possible to drive. So I don't...
How are you going to do that, Chairman, with no enforcement whatsoever?
I'm sorry, I've not finished. that it is a question of design into the developments rather than a speed limit imposed by law. It's putting in the curvatures and natural changes in texture and so on. But no doubt other councillors may wish to pick up on that, but that's my thought on the subject. Councillor Drayson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I hope to come back to talk on the main, but this is just a comment on the amendment. Surely it has to be seconded before Councillor Field can accept it. And it's incomplete because if you put those words in, you need to take out within the Regulation 18 consultation going out in January 2026. Just with adding those words, it makes no sense. And it hasn't been seconded.
I don't believe it needs to be seconded if the original mover accepts the motion which has happened. The member that's challenging that position may now make his own amendment without notice if he wishes, and the original mover can then either accept that, and if it's not accepted, it can be seconded, and then this second amendment can then be debated on the floor of the chamber.
Councillor Drayson.
There may be an amendment at the end of this. I fully support the intention of this motion, and particularly welcome, as was just commented, the emphasis on design. Speed limits, especially 20 miles an hour ones, are not achieved simply by sticking up a sign. Some 30% of drivers apparently break the 30 mile an hour speed limit. Some 40% break the 70, but an incredible 73% break 20 mile an hour speed limits. But that's not willful disobedience. That's psychological. That's our brains haven't caught up yet with the reality, because we still think that's incredibly slow and drivers have great problems. So it has to be a design, not a sign that says you can only do 20. Having said that, the local plan consultation that's referred to here is specifically addressing site allocations and development sites. I think that to add one bit of policy onto that public consultation risks confusion and also risks not necessarily getting the replies you want on the 20 mile an hour speed limit, because they'll be so taken up with these site allocations. I don't think there's an amendment there at the moment.
So there's no amendment from Councillor Drayson, but we still have a proposed amendment from Councillor Gray, which has been accepted, but needs to be seconded. Is there a seconder, Councillor Drayson?
In that case, can I amend the amendment by taking out within the Regulation 18 consultation going out in January 2026? Because if Councillor Gray's amendment says it starts straight away, we don't need it to go out to consultation in January 2026.
Well, the local plan has to go out to consultation, and that's the only way that this is really going to happen, isn't it? I think we have to take the First Amendment first, don't we? We take the First Amendment first, which is Councillor Gray's proposed amendment that after the word update in the first line of the second paragraph will include an update to take effect on the passing of this as from now, will take effect as from now. It is very difficult to draft on the hoof. Councillor Gray, do we really need this? Therefore, this council will include an update to take effect when?
The wording was to be effective from the passing of this motion. So, meaning from now.
You do have to adjust the second part.
I don't really see how it can when it's.
Chairman, I don't want to prolong the debate unnecessarily, but it does seem to me that there are some questions of legality around some of this, and I'm not trying to put it down or not. But the reality is, I would have thought you would have had to consult on something of this nature, and to bring it in straight away without consultation, I think we could be in dangerous water, Chairman.
Can I just offer some further advice on that, Mr. Chairman? So,
yes, please.
As members might appreciate, there are constitutional limits within our rules in terms of the nature and subject matter of motions that can be brought before the floor of the chamber. One of those is where, by passing a motion, members will commit council to an action that is outside of its legal authority, close quotes, or contrary to agreed processes. So I don't know whether in the chamber tonight we have an officer who can perhaps advise on that, either as it might pertain to the local plan or something else in relation to either the amendment, the first amendment, which I remind you was accepted and subsequently withdrawn, or indeed the original substantive motion. Ultimately, that is at your discretion, Chair, as to whether the motion as originally drafted continues, if you receive advice via the Chief Executive this evening that actually the motion would commit the Council to action outside of its legal authority or contrary to agreed processes.
Thank you for that. When we were putting together this motion and we were consulting the head of planning and the monitoring officer, it was very clear that this was part of the local plan process. So I think to agree to something that is outside of the local plan process when we know that we are in that process now of Reg 18 consultation in January just seemed to me to be outside of the framework we are trying to work in. So I would suggest that it's not implementable to go ahead with this evening. I don't know, I'll hand back to our Deputy Monitoring Officer just to clarify his how he advises to proceed.
So if that's the advice of the Chief Executive pursuant to our rules of procedure on motions, then my advice to you, Chair, hearing the Chief Executive's words, is to reject the motion on that basis, simply because it's committing the Council to an action outside of agreed processes.
That's that is the amendment which you are inviting me to disallow.
It's either the amendment or, if indeed, as I think one member commented earlier, the substantive motion itself, either or. Or both, if that applies.
I think we have councillors, we have received advice when this motion was added to the agenda. We received the advice of the head of planning and of the monitoring officer and of the chief executive that the motion itself, as originally drafted, was acceptable. I take on board everything which Mr. Watkins and Lorna Ford have said. I am going to disallow the proposed amendment, Councillor Gray. I shall disallow the proposed amendment, and we therefore have the motion being debated. Sorry?
I'd like to move an amendment.
Well, in a moment when I've finished. So we're now debating the motion as originally drafted and as appearing on your papers, agenda papers tonight. Now, Councillor Drayson, you wish to propose an amendment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Accepting what the Chief Executive said, I would just ask that in the part 2 of the motion, that Regulation 18 becomes 19, and we delete the word January, so that it's part of the Regulation 19 consultation that's going out later in 2026. Thank you.
I'm being advised not to accept that we do have a local plan going out as Regulation 18 in January, and that seems to be the sorry, Councillor Drayson, if you wish to say something else.
Sorry, yeah, I just think the consultation in January is sites only, sites for development. It's not anything about policy anywhere else. Thank you.
Councillor Drayson, the head of planning has said that he will add this as part of the Regulation 18 consultation going out in January. So I hope that answers your point. Now,
thank you, Jake.
Councillor Clark has been jumping up and down. Councillor Clark.
I only jumped up once. I wish to reiterate, East Sussex County Council, a non-pecuniary interest. We have discussed this at County Council. It's the practicalities of this policy. In my ward, Barrett's built 120 houses, and the road is a private road, and the residents contribute towards that. But the only way to get to it is on a public road, Pepsham Lane, which is a public road, which is a 30-mile limit. Now, there are real reasons for some of the residential roads in Rother to have a 20-mile limit. In Bexley Old Town, a lot of the runs in there are rat runs to get from Old Town through the West Road to get to Sidley. They could definitely need a 20-mile limit. How do you designate where the 20-mile limit starts? Is it the immediate road that goes into a new development? Is it the nearest approach road? And who will the police really monitor 20-mile limits? You know, enforcement is going to be a real problem.
Councillor John Barnes, then Councillor McLaren.
Chairman, I fear we are blundering into a legal minefield. It looks an extremely simple motion. It's one with which I have extreme sympathy, since in the high street through my village, we have recently had a driver at 54 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour limit. So I would love to support this. But the problem is, first of all, that we are plan-led. We would certainly have to go through Regulation 18 and Regulation 19, and the inspector would have to support this policy. But it's good to try and design, but the danger then is that the Highways Authority will not adopt the road in question. If they don't adopt the road in question, there will be no enforcement. I have this actually on Parsonage Croft. There is the problem where it becomes a private road. There's a stretch of road that was going to be adopted. The County Council has yet to adopt it. Technically, people breach the speed limit on that private road if they're late for the train or late for an appointment. Almost every day, it happens to be a school entrance. I would love to get it adopted and a 20-mile-an-hour enforced there. But you really have to face reality. I'd love to design in 20 in all new developments, but you would have to do it in consultation with the Highways Agency. It's not going to be easy to do through planning policy, and I doubt if the inspector will actually accept this policy if you put it forward, unless it has the support of the Highways Authority. So I just counsel, I can't vote against this motion, but I'm going to abstain because I think we're blundering into an area in which we simply do not understand what we're trying to do.
I think I'll say something I alluded to earlier, is that I don't think this motion is about statutory speed limits at all. It's about the design, which is something that we as a planning authority are responsible for. The design of roads so that drivers are encouraged or forced, if you like, by the layout of the roads, by the surfacing, by the chicanes, by the positioning of trees and so on, to drive at a safe speed. So I don't think it's about those statutory limits at all. And I mean, I stand to be corrected by the proposer, of course, but I don't think that's what this motion is about at all. So I don't see that difficulty myself. Anyway, I had Councillor John Coleman. I have Councillor Coleman, and then Councillor McLaren, and then Kirby Green.
Thank you, Chair. I echo Councillor Barnes' concerns about the legal minefield, to quote, with this. As much as I admire the intention of this motion, I think, first of all, probably the best time for these kind of conversations would have been when the local plan was being put together, and that was very stringent and long process with a lot of work by a lot of officer time and a lot of member input, that would have been a time, I think, where this kind of thing could have been put into policy in a way that properly balanced all of those concerns that Councillor Maynard raised and others. And I think the danger is now trying to inject something into the local plan process just as it's about to go to consultation. I think it risks the entire sort of legal acceptance of the local plan in its entirety, which would delay the local plan further. That's a risk that we've got to bear in mind. In terms of the public consultation, it creates confusion because those members of the public who are interested in this and have been following the process along from the start will suddenly go, oh, where's this come from? Why have you suddenly injected this in? And certainly, as much as I admire Councillor Gray's desire to implement something quickly and swiftly, and I love the enthusiasm there, if that were to happen, I'm glad that that's been rejected in this sense, then that would sort of be subverting that whole consultation process and saying, we want your opinions on this, but we're doing this on top, which would be an entire additional issue. So I've got a lot of concerns there. Whilst I agree with the sort of thrust of this motion in terms of what it's trying to achieve in terms of slower driving in communities, and we all know we all have communities in our wards where there are roads that could do with slower speed limits to avoid issues like that. I think there are too many legal issues for me. Perhaps if something were to come back following either the adoption of the local plan or at a future meeting when those legalities could be ironed out a little bit more, I'd welcome a discussion then, because I think there are also questions about the difference between new developments where already there are traffic calming measures that are written into the local plan that's going out to consultation. So these issues that we're having with older roads in our communities may not be so prescient in new developments anyway. So I feel like there's more discussion needed, and perhaps if this was brought back to the table at a later date, we could have that discussion with a bit more information around it. Thank you, Chair.
I remind councillors that this motion has been scrutinised by the head of planning. So, yes. Councillor Kirby-Green.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, you've pretty much said what I was going to say. So I sat on the scrutiny board at East Sussex, so maybe I need to declare an interest, I don't know, when this came, when Councillor Field brought it. And it was quite clearly said to her that it had to come to Rother District Council, which is why we've got it here. And I think, to clarify, in my mind, it is about the designing. It isn't about enforcing. You can't enforce. The police aren't going to be crawling around cul-de-sacs enforcing 20-mile limit. They don't enforce speed limits anywhere. So I think it's about designing development so that it's difficult to do more than 20 miles an hour. And as you said, I mean, I would agree that if we're talking about legal aspects, and I can understand what you're saying and you're saying and you're saying, but ultimately, the head of planning has supported this coming to this. So I can only assume that he knows about the legal aspect in the local plan. So I feel that it is right that it's here, whether you agree with it or not. I think it's fair. Well, I would say that we've got to be guided by officers, and we've got the chief exec here saying that it has been. So I think it is right, and I do understand that it's about the design of the developments, not the enforcement of the 20-mile-an-hour limit. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, I think councillors are only really supposed to speak once on each of these motions. But Councillor Gordon first.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, we're talking road design and not legal speed limits, I take it. I mean, I agree with the thrust that new developments have 20-mile speed limits, but they're not actually limits. They're obviously road design, so I'd like to clarify that, please. Because I'm worried about sort of adopted roads, private roads, etc., etc. Thank you.
So my understanding throughout has been this is a question of design, and that's the word in the motion. Councillor McLaren.
Yes, Chair, just to be clear, I have a question. I'm not doing my seconding. A question for officers. That's okay?
We don't normally do that at full council. Sorry.
Chair, am I allowed to correct something that Councillor Coleman said?
Yes, you may. You may try to.
Thank you. It's just the local plan is not written. There's a version out. It is not finalised. It's still going to be changed after the consultation in January and the consultation later in the year, when this would be better included.
Councillor Rathbone-Ariel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's an article just the other day about 20-mile an hour limits, in particular how people don't strict amount of take on board what Councillor Drayson said, exactly that. But in this article, it did mention that whenever it's set, you put around the limit the words child-friendly or child-safe, the adoption increases. So whether that's by the driver or by the companies that will be designing these roads, inserting those words around it will make greater enforcement, a greater take-up rather, of that 20 mile an hour limit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think, have we exhausted? The seconder to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to highlight something from the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents report of 2023 in the Guide to 20 mile an hour speed limits and zones. Okay, and it says that extensive evidence indicates that the speed significantly increases the likelihood of collisions and the chances of those collisions causing injury and the severity of those injuries, and that 20 mile an hour zones reduces the number and risk of these crashes and the casualties they cause. So the point I'm making here is that as every month ticks by that we delay doing this, we are going with that 5-to-1 ratio of likelihood of accidents. And so I know the motion doesn't have a time that in it today, but I would like to just state that we should be doing everything we can, notwithstanding the consultation timetable on the local plan, to bring this forward to prevent those accidents as soon as we can. In terms of summarising more broadly on this motion, I think we've also, Councillor Field talked about the experience of residents living in these new places. And I'd like to highlight the confidence of residents to spend time outside and how important that is. And I think if we can reduce the fear of speeding traffic, then more residents will be encouraged to walk and to cycle and to play and to socialise and to interact outside. And this is very important to fostering strong communities with a good quality of life. And we mustn't lose sight of that. And then finally, on the environment, we must remember that lower speeds do contribute to better air quality because there's less braking and accelerating. So that's an important factor. And also less noise pollution, which also really contributes to the quality of life. New developments need to provide more than homes. They need to be places where new communities can come together and thrive and grow together. So I strongly encourage the Council to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Field, do you wish to reply?
Go for it, Yes, thank you, I do. Councillor Maynard has been in the past the lead member on the County Council for, and I never know what it's called, but roughly speaking, highways, as indeed have I, twice. So, there's been a lot of confusion in this chamber this evening about what it is this motion is asking for. It is not about imposing speed limits and all the traffic regulation orders that they require. It is not about doing anything to existing roads, old in old towns, or new on newish developments. It is about what we do when we're granting consent to developments brand spanking new in a field. And that's what this is about. So forget enforcement. If this motion works when it's passed, and we are saying that roads have to be designed so that driving faster than 20 miles an hour around them is not possible, there will be no need for anybody to enforce anything or even put a speed limit in, because it won't be necessary. And as any of you who've entered the tangled worlds of setting speed limits knows, speed limits are only put in when they're self-enforcing anyway. So if you can't drive faster than 20 miles an hour up a road, you don't need a limit. So what I'm asking for, and Councillor Drayson, I'll leave it to those who know what they're talking about, to talk about regulations 18s, 19s or 20s. I'm not a planner, thank goodness. But whichever one is appropriate, that's where it needs to go. This is about making sure that developers, when they are building an estate, have roads connecting the houses to the outside world that are safe for communities and where drivers in them can't drive faster than 20 miles an hour. Now, the road in Blackfriars, for example, would be an ideal rat run to get round Bits Battles, which is why it's been designed with a huge kink in it to make it not worth anybody's while doing that. And I'm asking for that principle to be enshrined in our policies so our communities are safe and our new estates are safe. Quite straightforward in my mind.
So, councillors, we proceed to a vote on the motion unamended as appears in your papers, and taking into account everything that has been said this evening by the proposers and by the advice that we've had from officers. So all those in favour of this motion? And those against? None against, and abstentions. So that was 23. So that is 23 votes for with 7 abstentions. So the motion is passed. Thank you, councillors. And that, before we put our papers away, for that was the last item on the agenda, can I take this opportunity of thanking councillors for your consideration of the agenda items this evening, and to wish you all and everybody at home a very, very happy Christmas.
Chair,
The meeting is closed at 8:30.